Hello, I'm Scott Sinclair with the Enterprise Strategy Group, and we're back from Austin, Texas, and the Dell Tech Summit with the latest on Dell's strategy and approach to generative AI. Now, a lot that came out of the discussions is NDA, so we can't go into everything as much as we'd want to. But I got some of my fellow colleagues here from the Enterprise Strategy Group to go through, some of the things that they saw, what their reactions were, and maybe what it means for Dell moving forward. Gabe, why don't you kick us off? What did you see?
Yeah, I think Dell did a great job of explaining their end-to-end AI story better than a lot of the other customers or vendors that I've talked to. Most of the story was around services, or my big takeaways were around services that they're using to help organizations as they start their AI journey. The example they gave was the city of Amarillo, Texas, that's using it for public services that it deploys to their citizens. That landed the best line of the whole thing. It said, "How do they pay for the AI?" And they said, "AI pays for AI." So Dell services are helping the city of Amarillo, and I think that's the future for Dell.
Yeah, absolutely. I got the same thing. I came away far more impressed with their services capability. I already was, not to say I wasn't, but just the level of capability that they offer in terms of generative AI was incredibly impressive. John, how about you?
So yeah, the end-to-end generative AI story was super impressive. But my take on what was most interesting was that Dell did not ignore the sustainability aspects of AI. So, we all know AI is going to be fantastic, but there's this looming, oh my God, it uses more power than anything. These GPUs are crazy. And it was really good to see that Dell had a concrete strategy on, hey, how are we going to mitigate this? How are we going to address this? They looked at it in terms of hardware design and making changes to some fundamental changes to hardware design and architecture there, infusing better telemetry data and better ability to use telemetry data from their hardware, and using acquisitions, a recent acquisition like Moogsoft, to be able to pull that data in to give you more insight into how power is being used, what you can do to mitigate that. So it's great to see that Dell had not lost focus on sustainability, given that some of the impacts of AI are going to be somewhat impactful to organizations' sustainability journeys.
I was really interested in how the conversation with both the Dell experts as well as Dell's customers from their customer panel talked about the use of retrieval augmented generation. Basically, this is a method to rapidly augment existing language models to get much of the value of generative AI solutions without much of the cost of training and the infrastructure investments that people typically, I think, associate with generative AI projects or really AI projects in general. Um, Now, I thought that was incredibly fascinating because it aligns with Dell's DNA of how do we help organizations optimize their infrastructure environments to basically maximize the ROI that they get from their modernization efforts. Now let's switch gears a little bit and let's think about, okay, what does all this mean for Dell moving forward? Gabe, why don't you start us off again?
Like I said, I think services are the future for Dell. I think there's a lot of stuff gets kind of lost in the bits and pieces of the infrastructure itself. Honestly, I think organizations need help just putting together a strategy and assessing whether that's Copilot today, something else tomorrow, whether we're going to start from scratch and build up a whole strategic vision. I think that's where Dell is really putting their stake in the ground is on services these days.
Yeah, agreed. John, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, what it means for for Dell and for Dell's customers is that they're able to embark on their AI journey, work with Dell, and not lose sight of their sustainability initiatives, and know that they're going to have a partner that cares about sustainability. And even though artificial intelligence is going to put some new demands on data centers, on hardware, certainly on power consumption, that Dell is placing that front of mind, front and center, and is infusing all of the decisions they're making with sustainability in mind. And that was just great to see. We don't want to lose focus on the ultimate objective of saving the planet.
And for me, I'm going to build on what you guys talked about. And Gabe, you mentioned the services capability. I mean, my takeaway was Dell has made tremendous investments in terms of its advisory services, helping people think about which use cases are best optimized, which Gen AI use cases, excuse me, are best optimized for their organization, to thinking about data prep and overall how to take that data and get it best optimized into a generative AI solution. And then later, how do we optimize that moving forward? Essentially, everyone knows Dell, like I mentioned, for its great infrastructure capabilities. And I think moving forward, organizations and businesses that are thinking about Gen AI need to see Dell in a new light. And with that, I'll close it out. Thank you guys so much for your insights, and thanks to our audience for watching. Have a great day.